Hey guys, today's story is about an airship cruise and a kinda creepy DM. Last year in 2020, I was part of a campaign that had been described to me as a D&D game mixed with Hogwarts. It was set in the city of Waterdeep, where the Order of the Gauntlet had an exclusive militaresque school for training kids. Like Hogwarts, there were houses, but here they were named after gods. Corlin, Torm, Tyr, Ilmater, and Tamora. And you were sorted into these houses by what class you wanted to pursue. So clerics would go to Ilmater, rangers into Tyr, fighters and paladins into Torm, bards and rogues into Tamora, and only blade singers into Corlin. There wasn't any leeway for making a character that didn't fit into these boxes. So no druids or a different type of wizard. And leveling up was a bit of a mess, as everyone started at level 1 as a first year, but could only reach level 2 at the end of the in-game school year, which was predetermined by the DM. And when I joined, the campaign had been running for over a year, with all of the players still at level 1. Still, despite those three things, I had fun playing at first, and I even invited a friend of mine to also play in the campaign, who we'll just call Ranger. Unfortunately, not long after I invited the Ranger, a lot of out-of-game drama began to take place within the campaign. The details of that aren't super important to the story, but it resulted in another player being moved to the DM's second campaign, and my original character being killed off out of session, and then being asked to roll a new character. I should have just left the game, but I didn't. And as such, we now have this horror story. So my character, who I chose to be a cleric, was introduced as being enlisted alongside the ranger's character on a mission. The Order had been attacked by an elven army, causing that previously mentioned player's character to flee to Neverwinter, with their friend and final member of the party, who we'll call Bard. And the Order wanted to bring the Bard back, but without anyone being the wiser. So it was just going to be the two of them and one of the Order's teachers, a DMPC. And we were to take a high-end airship cruise line to Neverwinter, acting like civilians. We were reminded that this was a mission and that we had exams once we got back to school. So keep that in mind, was the DM's advice. The DM took his time in describing just how luxurious this cruise was. It had your spacious pool, buffets, restaurants, gambling, and a games room. And it did sound really fancy and fun to explore, but we had more or less been warned about exams, and from experience with my former character, I knew that the DM would apply in-game punishments and consequences for characters who failed their exams. Plus, the cleric I had made was a sort of a jock on the outside but nerd on the inside type of character, and he took his grades and missions very seriously. The Ranger's character was similar, so instead of the two of us role-playing, learning how to play blackjack or whatever, we instead had our characters study together near the pool, bonding over both being unsure whether they were suited for the mission, but determining to do their best and support each other where they could. But for some reason, the DM seemed annoyed by this. He had his DMPC, which was a tall, sexy human with a large sword and even larger breasts, who we'll just call Teacher, who rolled her eyes, muttering how she was stuck babysitting a couple of nerds, before leaving them both so as to drink by the pool, before then skipping ahead to us landing in Neverwinter. We picked up the Bard and found a quiet spot to go over what was expected for the mission. During this conversation, I mentioned how my character had taken a notebook out and had begun to doodle a tiger as Bard spoke. The notebook only had pages with similar messy doodle-like drawings. My cleric wasn't that great at studying or staying focused, and I thought it would be a cute quirk of his to frequently take notes of names and whatever else that he needed to remember for his grades, but that he drew what he needed to remember to better commit it to memory. I didn't think that it would be a distraction for the party, And for the scene, I had him draw a tiger, as Bard's character often wore a tiger pelt upon their person, and he drew it next to a cat with a bow, which was meant to represent the ranger's character, and a large-breasted stick figure, which was the teacher. I tried to make it clear that this was all that he had drawn. Even so, he suddenly found his notebook missing even before he had finished drawing.
"You should be careful with this sort of thing,"
the teacher smirked, showing that she had the notebook. The DM then described her digging her fingers behind the band of my character's pants, and then pushing the notebook down there, stating that this was the best place to hide things. I didn't really know how to react. I just had my character take the book out from his pants as he told the teacher that he would try to be more careful. Towards the end of that night's session, our party was back on the cruise ship and by the pool when the teacher suddenly announced that
they all needed to lighten up,
and proceeded to bring out bottles of wine from seemingly thin air, before encouraging us all to drink. The Bard's character did, but the Ranger and my character declined. The teacher was then described as being exasperated, insisting that we should all get into the pool so that there would be some sort of fun. The Ranger and Bard did, but my character was hesitant. Only I and the DM knew that he had more than a few disfiguring scars from an accident during his order training, and that they made him feel self-conscious. The teacher insisted that he get into the pool, however, and so, thinking to compromise, I had him state that he would sit on the edge of the pool with his feet into the water. But that was it. But of course, as soon as he did, she pulled him into the water, and I wasn't allowed to roll to resist. I then described my character, embarrassed and angry, getting out of the pool and leaving to change and dry off in the party's cabin. I thought that maybe that was going to be the end of the DM's weird hijinks through the teacher. I was wrong, however. Still in the pool, the teacher decided to have a water fight with the Bard, and they both decided to use the Ranger as a human shield. The Ranger went along with it for a little while, but started to get annoyed. The DM asked her to roll acrobatics so as to get away from them both. She rolled a 15, but apparently that just wasn't good enough to escape the teacher. Worse still, in attempting to get away, the DM described how the Ranger's bikini, held in the teacher's tight grip, pulled and pulled until it tore apart. The Ranger, who was now naked in the pool, had the Bard and teacher laugh at them and make comments about their body. The Ranger said that they wanted to get out of the pool and to find something that she could use to cover her body with. The DM told her to roll for perception, and she again rolled above a 10. But the DM stated that she could see nothing around the pool area, not even a spare towel. So the Ranger, with both the Bard and the DM giggling at the table, had to dash naked to the party's cabin while hoping that no one else saw them. At this point, both the Ranger and I spared each other that look. The difficulty level for her rolls had been ridiculous, and it was uncomfortable. Our characters were all 16, and the teacher who was supposed to be supervising their mission, and them, was harassing them instead. It felt gross, to be honest. But before I could really dwell on the crawling feeling down my spine, the DM had moved the spotlight on my character, alone in the cabin.
"What are you doing?"
he asked. I asked him back how long it had been since I had stormed away from the pool, finding out that it had more or less been an hour, and the in-game time was now light at night. So, stating that I had no interest in going back to the pool party, I was going to instead get ready for bed, hoping that tomorrow would be less infuriating.
"What are you wearing?"
I was asked. To which I thought for a moment before replying that I would be changing into pajama pants and an old shirt. I thought I was being prompted to describe my clothing, or just my surroundings, but I'd only mentioned the pants when the DM interrupted, stating that I was standing before the cabin's mirror, both shirtless and pantless, and that I had only just gotten one leg into my pants when the Ranger's character suddenly burst into the cabin, naked. My character was also naked apparently, and the DM took a moment to make this very clear to everyone at the table, and how alone the two of us were. Then he went quiet, clearly waiting for both the Ranger and I to take advantage of the scenario in a not-so-subtle way. Only, no. I'm not against romantic roleplay, but if it's not with an NPC, then I think it's important to plan that out ahead, or to at least ask the other player if they want to pursue that sort of thing with their characters. The Ranger and I had not done this, and I had never really thought to, not for that campaign. So instead I described my character immediately turning red, and grabbing for the nearest blanket and cocooning himself, turning his back to the Ranger and praying to Ilmater that she hadn't seen his scars whilst blabbing out apologies, such as that he hadn't locked the door and having seen her and so on and so forth. The Ranger also tried to not be naked, so the two of us had our characters hiding in beds on the opposite side of the room from each other, wallowing in their mortification. Pissed off that we didn't have our characters make out or whatever, the DM ended the session, and then proceeded to punish me in-game in the next session the week after in an attack that involved rope and a bathroom stall. However, I might save the details for that part in a part 2 if there's enough interest, as this is already getting pretty long. Well, I don't know if there ever will be a part 2 to this, but whether or not there is, I have to ask the OP, how many red flags do you need before you decide enough is enough and leave? There were numerous things that even a person that is fairly lax should be questioning heavily and probably thinking about leaving. And to save the outro from being a 5-minute long tirade, I'm just going to summarize it as this DM gives me a thought that he might be a weeb, or likes the idea of two 16-year-olds kissing and doing other things a wee bit too much. This guy is a walking red flag, like holy crap, that's creepy as hell. But yes, let me know what you guys think of this wonderful DM in the comments, and as always, have a good one.